Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Barry Rutten, who's the co-founder and managing partner of WealthDefense Financial Advisors. Barry, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
You are welcome. You know, I really love when I start off talking with someone and go, oh, your company is, and sometimes there's just that initial reaction of, wow, that just feels right. You know, and when you think about wealth defense, you know, financial, okay, yeah, money, okay, we're going to talk about money and finances. But when I hear the word wealth defense, it kind of gives you that feeling of that protection and that moat around your money. So I'm excited to learn about what you do in the financial field, but give us a little bit of your background and what your entrepreneurial journey has been like to this point in your career.
Sure. Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that because I don't know if you remember or anybody listening to this remembers when the movie The Highlander first came out. And it was Connor McLeod of the Clan McLeod.
Yes.
And there can be only one. And these were immortal people. And that's when I was first exposed to the idea of a castle being on high ground and being in an unassailable position. In fact, on our website, we actually have a castle as the image at the top. And I think that, when it comes to professional journey, I actually started out in law school. So I think I always kind of had that orientation to sort of be a protector. And but law school turned out not to be a great fit for me. And I was fortunate that I walked over to the undergraduate library and went into the basement and where the magazines were. And I looked at all the different professional journals in every industry because I broke my mother's heart and left law school. And so I had to do something on par. And I came across the Journal of Financial Planning, and I became fascinated by the idea of clients, but in a positive interaction where I was helping people achieve things as opposed to getting people out of trouble. And that was so a lot of people, I think, in my industry tend to fall into it from other things. I actually chose it from really early on. So I've always treated it as a profession and very focused on my own professional education, how it benefits my clients. And I have, in terms of journey, I think it's maybe more interesting about the place I've arrived at. And what I've arrived at is a lot of the conventional wisdom is just wrong. I think that's kind of part of my mantra.
Yeah. Well, I love a contrarian view, and I love when even from I'm a big fan of quotes. You know, like I've got this Evernote file that I have created, and just hundreds of quotes, and they just kind of, when I see a new one, it's like, oh yeah, that's good. And it's kind of like when you're doing a presentation, it's like, okay, guys, finish the sentence. If you win, you either win or you, and people are like lose, and you're like, no. You either win or you learn, because if you lose, air quotes, you must learn from that. Or, knowledge is power. Knowledge is only potential power. You've got to put it into action, and practice makes perfect. No, perfect practice makes perfect, because you could practice those piano scales incorrectly, and now you're ingraining bad habits. So I love when you say, conventional wisdom, because that means that people are like almost in a trance of, oh, I must do it this way. My grandfather said to do this, or my company says to do that. Talk a little bit about some of the conventional wisdom you're talking about, and what are some of your, nuances that you bring to that?
Yeah, it is interesting that I was a political science major and a history minor, and if you look at anything that's happening in today's world, it has roots from the past that we do tend to repeat patterns. And when you look at the history of just where words come from and, what was going on at the time. And so, where do these conventional wisdom things come from? And you have to understand their sources. So I'll give you one great example that I think everybody can relate to, and that's the home mortgage. And the word mortgage, and I don't speak French, so this is the only thing I know about French, is the word mortgage means death grip, mort in Latin. And I think that's very telling. It says that when you you borrow a substantial amount of money, you're essentially in the death grip of the lender, in this case, the bank, the lending institution. And so one of the pieces of conventional wisdom that I think causes people to have a tremendous amount of money pass through their hands in terms of income, but then it goes right back out, to the bank, is the idea of paying down your mortgage early. And if you think about how banks make money, your deposits are actually not assets of the bank. They are obligations of the bank because they pay interest on it. But you bring your money to them. They don't even have to go out and raise capital. You just bring your little savings account over there. And then they turn around and lend that money out in the form of a mortgage. And then they tell you, oh, you should pay that down quickly. Well, why? Now, the math works. It is correct mathematically, but the real reason why they want you to pay that mortgage back quickly is to recycle the money again, right? They had your deposits. Now they get the money back in terms of your prepayments, and now they can loan that money back out again. And so a person might have a, several $100,000 loan, but they may pay $700,000 or $800,000 back to the bank over time. And so the question is, can you eat your shingles, right, on your roof? Is it like a gingerbread house where you can snap off the shingles?
Right.
Absolutely not. So what they're doing is they're trapping all that money in the house in the form of, I'm going to pay off my loan. I'm going to own 100% of my equity. Well, equity does not earn a rate of return. Equity is a zero rate of return thing, and the only reason you get a positive rate of return in your house is because of market forces. Well, those are going to go up or down. The value of your house is going to go up or down regardless of how much equity you have. And so the question is, should you have that extra money back in your hands, earning interest or rate of return in your hands that you can use and access for emergencies and opportunities along the way, or do you want to put it back into the hands of the bank again so they can lend it out and they can earn a huge rate of return on the difference between what they pay you in interest and what they charge people, even at today's low interest rates? Let's just say your mortgage is 3.5%. Well, if they're paying you 0.01% on your savings and your mortgage is 3.5%, that's 34,900% more interest that they're earning than they're paying. That's why banks have really big, tall buildings. And so that's the kind of thing where I think people, if they understood, maybe I should capture my own money, hold on to it, and use it differently than I'm doing now for my own financial well-being rather than the bank's well-being.
I love it, and I'll tack on a little, go deeper on that example, because I think someone that might listen to this go, yeah, but Barry, that Grandpa told me to be debt-free. And what I would wonder is this. Maybe you would say, okay, I see you're be debt-free, and I will counter with, let's get you debt-free, but let's go about it in this fashion. So how much extra per month are you thinking of paying on your mortgage? Oh, well, I can, whatever the number is, right? $1,000 extra per month. I want to really knock it out. And you could probably sit down and show them how to do it safely. And I'm not a financial anything planner, but I will tell you that I would say, if I were sitting in on that meeting, I would say, okay, you know what? Let's watch to see how that $1,000 a month could grow in some fund out there with some good compound interest. And in X number of years, now we're looking at what you owe on your mortgage and what you have in this fund, and now you're on paper debt-free, and if you chose to take that money and pay it off, you could be debt-free. But I would say that there's another aspect that people don't think about. 2 to 3 to 4 years into this paying extra on the mortgage thing, and now you're seeing your balance go down, and you still owe a couple $100,000, but you paid a couple $100,000 on there. That money is sunk and gone and not liquid. And the problem is, if you ever needed $40,000, $50,000 because you've been paying extra and you need to reaccess it, you got to go knock on the door to the bank and go, could you please give it back? And they're like, sure, fill out this 4 trillion page loan application. Let me run you through every gamut of checking and this and that. And we might maybe peel off a little bit of your own money to give back. That's a interesting a conundrum. So I really like the way you're thinking there with that contrarian, like, hey, maybe the banks haven't figured it out. Let's use that arbitrage to our favor.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, there's no reason we couldn't have someone pay a 30-year mortgage and do an amortization schedule, figure out at what point 15 years down the road do we need to have hit a number that's going to be equal to the payoff of the loan. And if you so chose to pay off the loan, you could, and therefore now debt-free. At the same point in time, But the reality is you might be in your second or third house 15 years from now. It's not even the same loan anymore. But like you said, Mike, along the way, I have access to all that money. I'm earning rate of return. And if I need it again for an emergency or an opportunity, I control my funds, not the bank. And like you said, I don't have to ask for my own money back in the form of a loan, meaning the only way I can get my equity out is a sale or a refinance. Yeah. And that's it. And so that's again
long,
where I think
drawn out and costly. So they
effectively trap their money. Yeah. And they lose access and availability to it, and then miss out on, the term is called opportunity cost. Yeah. And it actually is quite devastating.
100%. And you might get to that, amortization period, and it's like down the road, X number of years, you've got the exact amount of money in this certain fund to pay off your mortgage, and you sit down with Barry and you go, okay, you can do it. And you're like, ooh, yeah, but now that one account. And so, you never know what you might decide down the road. And secondly, I will say back about 15 years ago, I spent 10 plus years in the mortgage industry. And I will tell you that it just irked me to no end to see people that buy a house and 2 to 3 to 4 or 5 years later, they go move and buy another house and they get a new 30-year loan. And 4 houses down the road, they were getting a new 30-year 30. They never at least go from a 30-year loan to a 20 to a 15 to a. But that's another nuance. That's maximizing and optimizing your funds and your money. So I love that approach there. Let's shift gears and kind of think about now business owners, entrepreneurs. What are some of the ways that you would say, traditional thinking would be this for a business owner or an entrepreneur, but here's something to consider?
Well, I think business owners have both unique opportunities and unique challenges. And when it comes to the financial side of the equation, I think they have to realize that there's 2 things going on: their personal life and their business life. And there's sort of a danger in mixing them, because I see especially entrepreneurs, we'll call them solopreneurs, they tend not to separate their personal finances and their business finances enough, and that can cause problems. Yeah. When you start to take on employees and have a larger operation, I think what happens is the business owner obviously wants to attract and retain and properly compensate key employees. But ultimately, I think the business owner is special. And frankly, so does the IRS. And so there are special things available to business owners in the tax code, especially to compensate and reward them and capture more of their profits in unique ways that really are not available to employees. And I see people not availing themselves of those opportunities, and also exposing themselves to some sort of blind spots along the way. But I think the big thing that I would say first is not missing out on what's available to you. And a lot of times it's just basically a lack of awareness. For example, trying to replace a business owner level income with the retirement plan tools that are available for the rank and file employee is problematic, in the sense that they just simply can't set aside enough money usually to accumulate enough assets at some point in time to generate an equivalent cash flow as they were earning from their business. And so while employee benefit plans are great, and things like 401ks and SEPs and things are fine, they really can't set aside, because the government sets limits on what they can put into those plans. And so we try to help them see that there are other ways to put money away that really have no limits or very, very high limits, and give them some additional tax advantages that you really just can't have as a W-2 employee.
Yes. And I think too, we don't need to get in the weeds of, here's some of the fallacies of, this product versus that product. But I know that there are some things that are traditionally thought of like, oh, if I'm a business owner, I want to offer this to my employees. And that might be wonderful, but there might be some nuances within that to your point, the business owner, entrepreneur could go, ooh, that's a really good point. So I think that taking advantage of every possible opportunity, and even you mentioned the banks and doing what the banks do. Well, I know that depending on, the product, financial product, I know that there are probably, 100 different variations of insurance products out there, from term to permanent, right? And the whole gamut. But there are certain kinds of insurance products that the banks actually put their money into because it's safe and been done for hundreds of years. And if you know what that is, maybe that's a good way to put some of your wealth into, because if the banks are doing it, the big companies are doing it, then that might be a safe thing too. So just some of that contrarian way of doing things, and people
actually,
don't know.
If you don't mind me expanding on the thought, I think you raise a really good point, and this is why one of the things I say all the time is there's a huge danger of relying on what I call 30-second drive time advice from radio or TV.
Oh, yeah.
I call them financial entertainers, because that's what they are, right? They're not really professional advisors. They are entertainers. Their job is really to attract ears or eyeballs or
interest
both to drive advertising revenue.
Yep.
So the more controversial they are, the more they rage against the machine, the more they have an enemy, such as product X. It just simply gets people to jump on the bandwagon and stay connected to them. And to tie that into the point you just made, there is a vilification of life insurance that takes place because, frankly, in a lot of cases, it's maybe been positioned incorrectly. But to your point about that the one of the best financial moves that you can make is getting your money out of an FDIC insured position. And you're going to be like, oh my God, Barry, what are you saying? Well, let's break down FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. So why do we insure deposits? Because they have a high probability of loss. If you go back to the Great Depression, the run on the banks, right? Meaning everybody wanted their money on the same day. The money wasn't there, and it collapsed the banks. The government had to step in, and eventually what came out of that was FDIC. Well, here's the problem. Number one, the money is obviously not in the bank. They take in $100. They loan out 90 of it. And then secondarily, the actual insurance fund isn't particularly well funded. It's like cents on the dollar. So the insurance industry is what's called the legal reserve system. They have to keep 100% of the money that you put in and the obligations they have in very high quality assets, government bonds, AAA guaranteed corporate bonds. And I'm sorry, not guaranteed, but government bonds guaranteed, AAA corporate bonds, very high quality. And then a reserve over and above that, so they can actually provide that kind of financial security. And during the Depression, the federal government actually borrowed from the life insurance companies because they were all the only ones that were solvent. And if you fast forward to today, where bank financial stability has become a bigger and bigger concern, the government looks at the bank's assets, their ability to withstand a severe economic downturn, and they look at what they call their tier one assets. And those are the most safe, most secure, most sound assets. Well, banks on average in the United States, and these are the big money center banks, all the names you've heard of, the Wells Fargos, the Bank of Americas, the JP Morgans, they go out and buy a special kind of life insurance from life insurance companies. It's called bank-owned life insurance. They have billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars in there. Well, if the federal government and the banks, two relatively sharp entities when it comes to dollars, says it's a pretty good idea to put money into the life insurance structure, then I'm not going to listen to the drive time radio and TV financial entertainer. I might actually want to pay attention to what the people who are managing billions of dollars and have a fiduciary obligation to keep money safe are doing with their most safe assets. And I think that's, again, kind of that contrarianism to conventional wisdom.
It really is. And, you know, it makes me think, too, I've had a friend that owned a financial services firm, and I remember him one day saying that there are certain types of investments, I forget the classification, but he's like, these are like unbelievable types of opportunities, but you can only access them if you have this much, I don't know, $10 million. And so someone is like, oh, that'd be great, Barry. I'd love to do that insurance thing that you just mentioned, but I'm not one of those at that level. But if I'm right, there are most of those kinds of insurance contracts that the average person it's just unbelievable. And we don't need to get into the details, but I will just kind of set the stage and say, if someone is listening to this going, you know what, I want to do what the banks put their own money, they're forced to be as safe as possible. And if they're doing this, I want to do the same thing. And you don't need to be, a decamillionaire. You can be Joe off the block and talk to Barry and go, show me a little bit more, and have that safety, have that liquidity, and have that really some of those tax benefits. It's unbelievable what the conventional wisdom say, oh, don't do it this way, do it this way. And you're like, okay, I must do that because I heard it on AM 910. You're like, really? So I really like the way that you laid that out.
The painful thing for me, and I've been a certified financial planner since 1994. And as I said earlier, I left, in the path of going down, becoming a lawyer to become a financial planner. So I take it really seriously and as a profession. And it's really actually kind of painful and frustrating to me to see how much money people, lose to these, sort of things that people think are accurate. Like hearing on, it drives me insane. I have to pull over to the side of the road and just scream at the radio when they talk about things like, you're gonna earn a 12% average return. Well, that doesn't even exist as a concept, meaning it's mathematically may be accurate, but in practical reality, it doesn't exist. And so, if you're in an investment of some kind and it goes, starts out at wherever it's at, and it goes up 50% and then down 50% and then up 50% and down 50%, your average return, if I add those four numbers together and divide by the number of years of 4 years, my average is 25, but what's my actual return? 0.
Yeah.
And so where people are like plugging into calculators, if I only put X into my account and it earns 12% on average, and so the calculator is assuming you get a 12% a year every single year,
right?
Then I'm going to have this much money when I'm done, and that's just simply not true. Your account actually experiences the ups and downs, and yes, of course, if you stay the course, you're probably going to be fine. But it's just this assumption of, I heard on the radio I should use 12% average return as my expectation, and so you set your expectations wrong. You probably don't put enough money aside because the 12% sort of covers the sin of underfunding your accumulation, say for your retirement, and you end up hundreds of thousands of dollars short of where you should be. And it's just, those kinds of things are just really, really frustrating to me, that people take that as, okay, that's what I should assume, when it's really not even technically true from history, let alone actually experiencing that as a real number.
100%. And people just kind of hang their hat on that one report or that one number, that one, calculation chart. And to your point, in the up 50, down 50, scenario of a few cycles like that, where did you get in and where did you get out? I mean, it's fine if you got in at the beginning and you waited for 25, 35 years, but invariably someone's going to get in at the wrong spot and get out of the wrong spot, and now you're in a really different spot. But you just have stuck in your mind that 12% because that's what my gal told me. And in reality, you need to make sure that you've got, you understand everything and you are properly defended. And that kind of brings us full circle back to why I love the name of your company, WealthDefense. If Barry and his team can help, put a moat around your money and your retirement and kind of give you some great guidance, that's a great defense for your wealth. And so I guess I'll just wrap up here, Barry, and say, someone's listening to this going, hey, tell me more. I would love to get to know you. What's the best way they can reach out and connect with you and learn a little bit more about the WealthDefense Group?
Sure. 2 ways. One, you probably noticed that I don't go into and bring up and talk about specific products. And that's very intentional because I really do feel that we should be following the doctor model, right? That number one, prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. And I do believe we should follow a model of examination, diagnosis, and then prescription. And so much of this industry is, hey, I've got this really awesome, great product. Who wants one? And I really just think that's really inappropriate. So if you go to our website, which is WealthDefenseGroup.com, you won't find any products. What you will find is kind of our philosophy about how we work and how we feel we can help people. There's a contact form, and there's no products on that contact form. It's simply a list of the different areas you might want to explore. And what I just want to leave people with, because I know many people are parents and may have minor children. And just as a quick example, on that form, it talks about something called funded guardianship. And I'm a real advocate for making sure people have great wills and trusts, and they've named guardians. And these are areas that just people just don't know they should be paying attention to. So if you reach out, indicate the kind of things that you might want to talk about. There's a sort of a free-form box where they can do that. if you're a business owner listening to this, because several of our questions related to business owners, you can actually take a self-evaluation related to your business. So at wealthdefensegroup.com/Bobs, like the name with an S at the end, BOBS, it's for business owner blind spots. And I think that self-evaluation might be really revealing. So either the website itself, wealthdefensegroup.com, or wealthdefensegroup.com/Bobs for our business owner friends.
Excellent. Well, it was so great chatting with you, Barry. I love your approach to business and your finances and wealth. And thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for your time, Mike. I really enjoyed it.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.